Okay, so after my second session with the game, I'd say the story bits. It's interesting because every time you meet a character, it's like you are starting again because they've set it up where you can pick any character, and the stories don't necessarily weave together. They can just kind of work together. What I do like in the game is the ability they have to influence over NPCs, whether you're pickpocketing or whether you're asking them to come with you and you're sort of recruiting them. That's a really interesting thing to do with what are normally very, very static characters that usually NPCs will just sit in a JRPG town and they never move or do anything. So it's a cool way of like bringing them along with you and feeling like you kind of discovered something that maybe you would have missed in the past. Having more characters now in the battle system is going to make it more interesting, and the different combos you can do and like how you can stun people and then do more damage. I still like the combat. I think it's quite fast paced. Like I was saying, it's so much better than the ATB system. I hate the ATB system on the older Final Fantasy games for two reasons. Number one, it ruins the strategy because you are so concerned about getting the attack off as soon as possible so that you can start that bar over again. So it becomes less about what's the optimal thing and just more about getting an attack out. And you generally just attack until you have to heal. And also with ATB system, you spend time doing nothing, just watching the bars go up. Whereas this is just bam, 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 bam. As soon as your turn's over, it's the next person's turn. And it's very, very fast-paced. Even though I like the strategy of the CRPGs where you're moving around a bit more, or the ARPGs or whatever they're called, like Banner Saga or Project Triangle Strategy. Those battles do take a lot longer. They're fun, and I think that if you do them in a way where there's less tedious battles and more like serious ones, like Banner Saga, then I think that works really well. Whereas this one, it can get a bit tedious when you're walking back and forth in an area, exploring for chests and stuff and getting into random battles that you know are not going to challenge you at all, and it's just really a matter of time. But at least they're fast-paced enough to bang through them, and they're pretty satisfying to break their guard and find new ways to break their guard really quick and make it so they don't even get an attack back on you and then hit them with all this stuff. So I guess the next time I play, I'm going to have to figure out where the skill points need to go and figure out this guy's quest. But so far the game is pretty good. I'd say it's better than average in terms of, well, it's interesting because I'd say the story is like average to above average. For video game writing, I'd say it's fairly strong. A lot of video game writing is pretty weak. This is fairly strong. The combat is quite good for a turn-based game, where it feels like there's strategy and strengths and weaknesses to what you're doing, but it doesn't feel like you're stuck on an optimal path of you have to do it this way or it's not worth doing, even though you have to break them. But they feel like they give you more opportunities in how you want to do that. I felt clever getting that one attack that does the multiple arrow strikes, and sometimes there might be 3 enemies that are all vulnerable to arrows, and you might miss because they give you 5 to 8 shots, and there's probably about a 50% chance of hitting them. Although you can't increase that. That's limited. But if you got 3 enemies and they only have 1 shield and they're vulnerable to that arrow, it's really satisfying to launch that attack, and you might miss half of them, but you can still break all 3. Then they don't get to attack you back, and then they're taking double damage, and you can finish them off with someone else. I still don't quite know what's the best thing to do once their armor is broken, but that does make it feel like there's a bit more open, where I don't quite know the best thing to do, but I still feel like I'm being effective and enjoying sort of figuring it out. And then of course the visuals are definitely the best way to do a retro RPG. It's so beautiful. The lighting constantly amazes me, and the depth of field does not annoy me at all. And then the music is very, very, very strong. Heavily influenced by Nobuo Uematsu, but doesn't quite have the little weirdness that each Nobuo Uematsu track tends to bring. This is a little more, less weird, more satisfying, more it doesn't break the mold. It doesn't doesn't color outside the lines or try to do a lot of new things, but it's very solid, and all the new the real played instruments and stuff is a real treat to listen to, as old people like myself say. Anyways, I'll keep on playing this game, and it's on Game Pass, so how about that? So thanks to Big Boss Steve and Solace for joining me, and there was a guy named Hell's Drugs or something who joined us earlier. That was fun. Goodbye.